Okay, it says you're live.
Okay.
But hang on though, I want to see. Here it still says waiting, so there's a bit of a lag time. Okay. All right. We're there, Martin.
All right. Well, good afternoon. My name is Martin Tyner. I am the founder and CEO of the Southwest Wildlife Foundation. And this is an experiment. This is the very, very first time that we're doing a live feed. And so if anything isn't working, would you please let us know so that we can make the corrections? I've got my web geek sitting right across from me, and she can help fix any problems that we're having with the feed. So please let us know if something isn't working for us.
Speak up.
Okay, and of course, everybody recognizes my friend here. This is Scout. This is our golden eagle. We're going to talk quite a bit about Scout today. And what else do you want me to? What are the announcements you want me to do?
Let's talk about you and Scout.
About Scout and I, you betcha. And if you have questions, please feel free to ask questions, because that's kind of what this whole live feed is about that we're working on here. Scout is a golden eagle. He's about 16 years old. He is one of our wildlife ambassadors for the Wildlife Foundation, and he's actually one of my personal falconry birds. We've been together, what, 13 years, 14 years, something like that, and he's really quite a dear friend. Scout was a completely wild eagle. He was living up in Wyoming, and a farmer felt that he was a threat to his livestock, and so I was called in by the federal government to go rescue him before he got shot. So this is a full-grown wild eagle, and like I said, he's just really a very, very dear friend to me, and we've been together a long time. Golden eagles are really a magnificent animal. We have two eagles in North America. We have the golden eagle, which is what this one is, and we have the bald eagle, which is the emblem of our nation. The golden eagle is the world eagle, where the bald eagle is found exclusively in North America. The golden eagle is worldwide. And so we find these throughout Europe and Asia, and there's subspecies in Africa and Australia. So they're really found all over the world. My eagle right here, he weighs about 8 pounds, and so people don't really realize how lightweight they are. And look at these feet. Let me show you something here. Let me show you your pretty feet. Look at those guys. Look at those talons. There's approximately 600 pounds per square inch of crushing power in those feet. He can drive those talons through the glove and crush the bones in my hand. So it's really good. He likes me.
Why don't we mention how odd it is for Scout to be in the house?
Yeah, Scout's in the house. He doesn't normally come in the house for the simple fact he's extremely big, and this is my living room, and it's really quite small, and so it's very, very cramped for him. So he's a little crowded in here, but he's doing okay.
And we can see the plastic in the screen here.
Oh, we can see the plastic. Yeah, I actually have a perch here and some plastic, and we bring, my falcons and my hawk in the house. They're quite a bit smaller than what Scout is, so he gets to kind of hang. He basically, I have to go out to his house to hang out with him. He doesn't get to come in the house to hang out with me. So he's a very, very large critter.
Okay, we've got 30 people watching Scout, and we have a question. What is the largest prey that he can catch?
What is the largest prey that he can catch? The largest prey in the wild that he will catch is primarily jackrabbits. But with the assistance of a falconer to help him, golden eagles like this have been used for hunting the smaller wolves like steppe wolves in Europe. They've been used for hunting the smaller deer like roe deer, which are very tiny. They've been used to hunt goose and grouse and foxes and coyotes and so on. But again, in the wild, that would not be a normal part of their diet. That's basically with the assistance of a falconer to assist them in the kill.
And this is from Gamadin. He wants to know if you think falconry is in decline.
Do I think falconry is in decline? Falconry has been actually going on for more than 4,000 years. It started in China more than 4,000 years ago, and falconry kind of evolves with every culture and civilization. And in fact, to be honest with you, when falconry appears as an intimate part of a society, that means that the society has hit the peak of its growth and achievement, because falconry requires a civilization that is highly educated with a great deal of leisure time. And so once falconry appears within a culture, it means that the culture's hit the peak of its prosperity, and it usually starts into its decline. And so here in North America, to be honest with you, falconry really hit its peak in the 1950s. And so is falconry in decline? A little bit. But so is, I think many people would agree, so is America. You know, socially, I think the 1950s was kind of the pinnacle of our civilization.
What does Scout eat?
Scout loves to eat rats and mice and quail and pigeons and rabbits. Very much the same thing he would eat in the wild. Yes, I know, we're very boring to you, just sitting here in the house, huh, kiddo? With all birds of prey, we don't feed them meat. Meat is not good for them. Yes, we feed them a natural diet. They have to have the whole animal, so they eat bones and fur and guts and brains and everything in order to get a balanced diet. So we feed them whole animals, not just meat.
And here's a question: what is it about golden eagles that makes them not the best hunters? How do golden eagles compare to your other falcons in terms of hunting?
Well, the problem with the golden eagle is their size and their weight. Basically, they are phenomenal to go hunting with, but his success ratio, he'll catch one jackrabbit for every 40 or 50 we chase. Where my hawk, which is significantly smaller and more agile and more efficient, he will catch a jackrabbit about every other rabbit that runs. And so that's really the difference, is that these guys are large, they're not agile, they're not as maneuverable, they're slow to get off the ground. And so, but on the other end of the stick, the thing that you have to realize is the smaller the bird, the more frequently it has to eat. And the larger the bird, the less frequently it has to eat, but the larger portions that it has to eat. So it kind of balances itself out.
Someone's asking why his mouth is open right now.
The reason his mouth is open is we're actually indoors, and it's a little bit warm inside the house. It's probably about 70 here inside. And eagles are just literally covered with the best down feathers and that you could possibly have, so they do get warm very, very easily. And so with this guy, we can be out in the middle of winter, 10 below zero, he's loving it. When it gets above 70, we kind of have to watch him carefully to make sure he doesn't overheat.
Do they have rabies?
Do they have rabies? You know, I've never heard of a bird of prey ever contracting rabies, and so I can't say that it never happens, but I've actually never heard of it. That's more of a mammal issue.
Okay, we're going to go to some questions sent in before. This is from Linda F. How old is Scout, and how long will he live in captivity versus the wild?
Scout's about 16 years old, and if all goes well in captivity, he will live more than 40 years. In the wild, less than half, because the wild's a really tough place to make a living.
From Amber E, what is the wingspan? How much do they eat per day? How fast can they fly? We'll keep going.
Okay. Amber, okay, how much does he weigh? He weighs about 8 pounds. Golden eagles do range in weight. A small male golden eagle will be about 5.5, 6 pounds, and a really large male golden eagle will run about close to 9 pounds. And so he's about 8, so he's a pretty large male golden eagle. The females are a third larger, and so the females range on average from about 9 pounds up to about 14 pounds. And so it depends on if it's a male or female. And how much does he eat? He eats about a pound of animal a day. So about a pound of rat, or a pound of rabbit, or a pound of quail, so about a pound of food.
And what is his wingspan?
His wingspan is about 6 feet.
How many eggs do they lay? Well, females.
The females generally lay 2 eggs in a year, And so I have found once in the 50 years that I've been working with these guys, I did find one uh, clutch of baby golden eagles not far from here that had 3 chicks. And that's the one and only time that I've seen 3 chicks in a golden eagle's nest.
And how many chicks make it to adulthood?
How many chicks make it to adulthood? Um, to be honest with you, about about 80% of all birds of prey don't survive the first year. And so mortality is really, really quite high. The wild's a tough place to make a living, and people think that their mom and dad teach them everything, and they really don't. What happens is they learn from mistakes, and so the number one injury to eagles is being hit by cars. And the reason they're hit by cars is because they're eating roadkill. They're eating dead rabbits on the highway. They prefer roadkill for the simple fact that dead rabbits don't run nearly as fast as live ones, and so that makes it easier for them to get food. And because they're so large and so slow to get off the ground, that they end up cars coming down the highway at 70, 80 miles an hour. If the car doesn't slow down, the eagle doesn't have time to actually get out of the way, and they don't know that a car is a threat until the car nearly hits them.
And the last question from Amber, when do chicks leave the nest?
Chicks will leave the nest at about 12 weeks. And in fact, that's one of the things that's really fascinating about these guys. From the time they hatch, and they're just a few ounces, and they're very tiny coming out of the egg, from the time they hatch to full grown and flying is 12 weeks.
Now, Jody H. asks, what is the difference between golden eagles and bald eagles?
There's a lot of difference between golden eagles and bald eagles. You know, as I mentioned a little earlier, that the bald eagle is exclusively North American, where the golden eagle is our worldwide eagle. The golden eagle is basically a hunter scavenger. The bald eagle is primarily a fisher scavenger. It's a sea eagle, and so some of the characteristics that you will see that quite a bit different. It's a little hard to see because I have his leather anklets on here, but the golden eagle, the feathers to its legs, or the feathers on the legs go all the way down to the top of the foot, and that's the golden eagle. The bald eagle, this part of the leg, the tarsus is bare because they reach into water to catch fish. And so this is called a booted eagle because it has feathers to the top of its foot, and the bald eagle is a sea eagle. The bald eagle gets a white head and a white tail when they're 5 years old. The golden eagle starts off life with a golden head, and it keeps that gold throughout its entire life. But the golden eagle also gets a big, thick white band in its tail as a juvenile, and when it turns 5 years old, it loses the white in its tail. So the golden eagle loses the white at 5. The bald eagle gains the white at 5, and so their builds are a little bit different. The bald eagles, generally speaking, are slightly larger than the goldens. The golden eagles, to be honest with you, have a much more stable personality than the bald eagles. The bald eagles are a little more nervous and a little more bitey and that kind of stuff. For the golden eagle is actually, if handled properly, they can be very sweet and very gentle and very affectionate. Though always wild, these are never pets. But the golden eagle is preferred eagle to be able to work with.
And Lilla asks, are they an endangered species?
Lilla, no. Actually, the golden eagle has never been an endangered species, where the bald eagle has been an endangered species, and that's primarily because of a pesticide called DDT. But both the golden eagle and the bald eagle are protected under the Federal Migratory Bird Treaty Act, which is actually protection above the Endangered Species Act. So the bald eagle and the golden eagle are the most protected animals in all of North America.
Okay, this might be a repeated question, but this is from one sent before. From Deborah D. How do you go hunting with Scout?
Do I go hunting with Scout? Yes. He is a falconry bird. I am the first person in North America licensed to trap and train a wild eagle in falconry. And so he gets to fly free. He goes thousands of feet in the sky. He flies with the wild eagles. And he follows me as I flush out jackrabbits for him to catch. So he gets to fly like an eagle and hunt like an eagle. and we still have them available for our school programs and scout programs and community event programs. So he kind of does double duty.
Okay, this is from Patricia. She says, "Do you see many eagles' nests? We have one in Ohio at Firestone Farms, bald eagles. Nest is 10 years old. Is that unusual? The tree is dead."
That really is not unusual. Here in Utah, we only have about 17 nesting pairs of bald eagles in the entire state. We have thousands of golden eagles nests. And so we find a lot more golden eagles than we do bald eagles nesting here in the state. Golden eagles and both bald eagles and golden eagles will nest as long as things aren't disturbed. They will nest in the same nesting site for decades. In fact, I've got one golden eagle's nest here that's out west of town. The pair has been there for more than 30 years. Now let me kind of explain how that works. There has been somebody nesting there. Now if a member of the pair, either the male or female, doesn't survive the year, then its mate can choose another mate. And so is this the same exact pair for 30 years? Probably not. But they return to the nest site, they go through their courtship. They're a very, very long and elaborate courtship, and they're very, very good parents.
This is from Forrest Dank. "Have you ever had a bald eagle as an ambassador? Is that allowed for someone like you?"
Well, actually, he is my wildlife ambassador. So not only is he my falconry bird, but Scout and I do, like I said, we travel all over the western United States with some of the other animals as well, and we do school programs and scout programs. In our wildlife rescue, wildlife rescue is extremely important. We're taking care of animals that are sick or injured. But we actually save a lot more animals every year through the education that we do. Because if I can convince people to, when they're out in the agricultural areas and they see a big bird on the highway, to please slow down and let the bird get off the road, that saves more eagles than the number of eagles that I have to repair that have been damaged.
Well, he's asking if you would ever have a bald eagle in a role as scout.
Oh, as a bald eagle, yes. Bald eagles can be used for wildlife ambassadors. They don't work as well for falconry as they do for education. But yes, we can have a bald eagle. We would have to have a bald eagle come into the Wildlife Rescue Center that is permanently disabled. It could never be returned to the wild, because the goal is always get them back in the wild. And so if we have a bald eagle that comes in that cannot be returned back to the wild, and the choice is either place it as a wildlife ambassador or it has to be euthanized. And then that eagle can be used for education.
Kath L asks, "Why is he named Scout?"
Why is he named Scout? Why are you named Scout?
Should we make him buy the book?
You should, yeah, let's buy the book. In fact, I don't have a copy sitting here. I should have grabbed one. But we do have a book. It's called Healer of Angels. And you can order the book off the website, and it's 50 years of wildlife rescue stories and the wisdom of grandparents. And the profits from the sale of the book come right to our Wildlife Rescue Center to help us feed the animals. But let me ask you your question. Why is he named Scout? My previous golden eagle was my falconry bird, was my wildlife ambassador, and just like Scout, was just an absolute dear friend. And we were together for 16 years. And Scout, and that particular eagle was named Bud, and Bud and I, just like Scout, we traveled throughout the western United States doing a lot of educational programs, especially Boy Scout Eagle Courts of Honors. And one day Scout was bitten by a mosquito, or Bud was bitten by a mosquito, and he contracted West Nile virus. And West Nile virus is almost 100% fatal in adult eagles. And though we tried everything in the world to save his life, we lost Bud. And it was absolutely crushing to lose him. He died in my arms. And it was hard. But anyway, when we got Scout, we were looking for a name. And we actually had a Name the Eagle contest here in our community. And people came up with some great, wonderful names. And I was looking for a name to give Scout that wasn't a name of what an eagle is. I was looking for a name about what an eagle could actually become, if that makes any sense to everybody. And so in the process of doing that, we got all these great names sent it to us, and we had what 3 or 4 people suggest the name Scout. And as I thought about it, I thought my Eagle Bud, we've been together for 16 years. We traveled the country, and we were encouraging young scouts to become Eagles. And throughout that entire process, my Eagle Bud was just absolutely wonderful. He was trustworthy, and he was very loyal to me, and he was friendly, and he was courteous, and he was kind, and he was obedient. And I just started thinking of the Scout laws, which is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. And in a real sense, with our traveling throughout the country, encouraging young men to become Eagles, my Eagle Bud became a Scout. And so that was my hope for Scout here, is that through our service and our programs that we do, and we travel the country to encourage young men to become Eagles, my hope was that this Eagle would become, just like Bud, would become a Scout. And so that's why we named him Scout. Kind of a long explanation, I know, but that was the thought behind it.
Someone asked, are eagles as affectionate with their mates as other types of birds are?
Eagles are actually one of the most affectionate birds of prey with their mates. They're very sensitive. They're extremely intelligent. The courtship is, if you ever have the opportunity, and I have this opportunity because I live here, where I monitor eagles' nests, and you watch the gentleness and the care that they demonstrate to each other is pretty amazing. And also the gentleness that they show to their young. They're truly, truly amazing parents to watch. And so if you ever get that opportunity, I would highly recommend it. But please, please, do not go up to an eagle's nest. If you've got a good spotting scope and you can stay hundreds of yards away, because you do not want to disturb them, especially on the nest, because we don't want them to abandon the nest and have the chicks die. So they're very, very sensitive to human interference, and you do need to stay a long distance away, but a good spotting scope is well worth the investment if you want to watch these guys.
Okay, we have some new visitors, and someone late to the game asks, do you rehab birds? Sorry got here late. Was the eagle hurt? Too badly released back to the wild, and why is he kept with you?
Okay, yes, I am the founder of the Southwest Wildlife Foundation. We are a wildlife rescue, wildlife, and environmental educational organization. And I have been caring for sick, injured, and orphaned wildlife for more than 50 years. So yes, I do. That's what we are. We rescue critters, we put them back in the wild. That's the number one thing that we do. And birds of prey are my specialty, and we do a lot of that. This particular eagle is a little bit different in that he's perfectly healthy. But as I did mention a little bit earlier, and I'll mention it again, a farmer up in Wyoming felt he was a threat to his livestock. And because he felt he was a threat to his livestock, I was called in by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, by the federal government, to go to Wyoming, remove him from the situation. And are eagles a threat to livestock? To be honest with you, no, they're really not. There are farmers that believe, old wives' tales that eagles can swoop down, carry off sheep, cows, and children. This is a full-grown wild eagle. He weighs 8 pounds. He can carry about 1/3 of his body weight into flight, and so he can carry about 2.5 pounds. So they're really not a threat to livestock. Can an eagle kill a newborn lamb? It could, but primarily it's a scavenger. It's looking for something much easier than that. And so an eagle will come down and clean up a carcass from a dead animal, and the farmers will drive up and see the eagle eating on a carcass, and they say, well, the eagle must have killed it, when they really didn't. They're just actually helping the farmers out. But sometimes it's just really, really hard to change people's minds and opinions and beliefs. And so sometimes it's better, instead of arguing the point, but go ahead and rescue and remove the animal. Now, the reason he's still with me, and again, this we're talking, 13, 14 years ago, I trapped him and removed him, is the agreement was that the eagle is never ever allowed to go back to Wyoming. Now, they're migratory, and they will return to where they learned to fly. And in that kind of a situation, if we just take the eagle, take him out 1,000 miles away and turn him loose, he'll go right back to where he was. And so by a federal agreement, he cannot go back to Wyoming. He can never be returned to the wild. Eagles like this are frequently, if they are rescued, they frequently go to a zoological park as an educational bird, and they basically spend the rest of their lives in a cage. And that's fairly sad. But because of my skills and my expertise, I'm allowed to fly this eagle as a falconry bird. Now, as a falconry bird, that means that this eagle flies free. He goes thousands of feet in the sky. He flies with the wild eagles. And we'll be flying out about 10 miles north of town here. He'll be soaring the ledges 10 miles north of town. He'll go thousands of feet in the sky, and he flies with the wild eagles. And as I'm looking up in the sky and I see my eagle soaring the ledges, I will frequently see other eagles using the same airspace soaring the ledges up there. And you'll see 2 or 3 eagles kind of soaring together, and you always have to wonder what they're talking about. To see my eagle kind of just soaring with his friends, I can see my eagle looking over as one of his buddies to say, watch this, I have a trained human. All I have to do is drift out over that guy's head, and he'll run out through the desert with a stick, hitting bushes, flushing out rabbits for me to catch. And I will. And if there are no rabbits to be found and it's time to go home, I can blow my whistle, which is the dinner bell, and my eagle will fly down out of the sky and land on my glove for food. Or I have his toy. It's a leather sack. It's called a lure. And it's a leather sack that I tie some food onto, and I can blow my whistle, throw his toy out on the ground, and my eagle will go into a wonderful dive. Headlong, vertical. He'll dive at about 145 miles an hour, and he will kill the leather sack, which is convenient. Well, I must admit, one day my eagle got a little bit confused. Thousands of feet in the sky. No rabbits to be found. It was time to go home. So I blew my whistle, threw his toy on the ground, and my eagle went into a wonderful dive. Headlong, vertical, 145 miles an hour. It was impressive. But it became apparent very quickly he wasn't coming down to kill his toy. He was coming down to kill my arm. When I woke up, I was 6 feet back, laying face down on the dirt, with my eagle standing next to me, looking down at me to say, why are you laying there? So I had a long talk with my eagle that day, how I could not withstand the impact of an 8-pound bird at 145 miles an hour, and I would appreciate if you'd never do that again. Well, he hasn't, and I've been grateful for that. That eagle dislocated my shoulder and damaged my back and knees. But see, that has given me knowledge. I have a knowledge that none of you have. I have an absolute knowledge of exactly what is going through the mind of a jackrabbit just before an eagle kills him. I don't recommend it, but it's mine.
We have a round of thank yous, including from Susan. Patricia just made a donation and said, love your work.
Oh, thank you, Patricia.
Susan, you going to say a thank you?
Oh,
Susan's over here listening too.
My sweet wife Susan's sitting in the chair in the room with me.
I zoned out. So, thank you, Patricia.
Yeah,
Thank
Susan's
you,
heard all these
everyone.
stories. It puts her to sleep.
And this is a question that's often asked in comments. This is from Pamela. She says, can you explain how 3 bald eagle nests and 1 golden eagle nest have been discovered to raise a red-tailed hawk baby?
The truth of the matter is I can't. I truly cannot explain how that's possible. I personally, and I've been doing this for 50 years, I have personally never ever seen that. I've heard stories of that, but I truly can't explain, how or why that would have happened. They would have, to be honest with you, well, Let me give you a wild speculation, a very, very wild speculation. Let's assume, for some reason, that a red-tailed hawk has started to nest early and has taken over what it thought was an empty nest site, and it happened to be a bald eagle or a golden eagle's nest. Let's just assume that happened. The adult eagles come back, they start pair bonding, they decide they're going to take the nest back from where the red-tailed hawks are, and they drive off the red-tailed hawks, but there happens to be an egg in the nest, and then mama eagle lays her eggs, and is it possible that the chicks hatch and they just assumed it was one of theirs? That's just a really wild speculation. I really have no real understanding or evidence as to how that could have possibly happened, but that would be my guess.
Are male eagles or female eagles more or less aggressive?
Well, actually, not necessarily. The aggression isn't male or female. The size is male or female. And so the females are about a third larger than the males. So the females can certainly be more dangerous to handle just because of their size and their strength and their power. But a male certainly is very, very well equipped. You never ever want to walk up to any wild animal, especially a wild eagle, because they can be quite dangerous. And so if you find an injured wild animal of any kind, please don't approach it. Please contact your local wildlife rescue center. And if you don't know of a wildlife rescue center, your state fish and game, and at the absolute worst, you can call police dispatch. Please do not call 911. That's for human emergencies. They get mad at you if you call 911 for animal emergencies. But if you do have an animal emergency, you can look it up in information in the phone book, your local police department's dispatch phone number, and you can call them that number and say, hey, I've got this wild animal and this is the issue, and can a local game warden or a local wildlife rehabber come and help?
Someone asked, is a Harris hawk best beginner bird for falconry, I assume?
The Harris hawk is by far the best North American bird of prey for falconry, hands down. Is it the best beginner bird? Yes and no. And the reason I say yes and no is because if you go out and you purchase a Harris hawk from a captive breeding program, you have robbed yourself of a lot of educational opportunities that a red-tailed hawk would give you, because you would go out as falconry. You have to be properly licensed, and then you are allowed to go out at the appropriate time of year and trap a red-tailed hawk on its first migration. And so the educational process of trapping and handling, it's called manning, and going through the taming and training processes is invaluable as compared to purchasing a captive raised bird of prey from a captive breeder. And so the truth of the matter is, for my apprentices who come to me and say, I want to be a falconer, though it's not required by law anymore, but it's required by me personally, that if you want to be one of my students, then you have to, throughout your apprenticeship, you have to trap, train, and fly a red-tailed hawk. And that prepares you to step into falconry in the best way possible.
Okay, we're at the 33-minute mark. Do you want to keep going, or do you want to set a time cutoff?
No, let's just keep going. If there's questions and people want to talk, I'm here.
Okay.
And Scout's here.
Nicole D says, how long did it take for Scout to warm up to you?
How long did it take, Scout, how long did it take you to warm up to me? Well, the truth of the matter is, I can have a full-grown wild eagle basically sitting quietly in my glove just like this in a quiet place that is that is dark and low stress in about 5 minutes. Now that doesn't mean that we're friends. That just means that he's sitting here looking at me and saying, "Well, you're not hurting me. What's going on?" I can, with the proper amount of time available, I can take a full-grown wild eagle like this one right out of the sky and have him flying free in about a month. Now, is that fully trained? No, but that's again part of the process. To get to the point where you truly feel that you've got a partnership and a friendship, that just comes with time. But I would venture to guess it took us two, 3, maybe 4 months before I would walk outside, and he has his house, his chamber outside, and I would walk outside and he would whistle to me because he wanted me to come and give him a hug. And so at that point I knew that we had become friends.
Okay, question from Tile or Teal Forever. How much damage can an eagle's beak do? Does it only cut or does it crush as well?
Well, the eagle's beak is not like a macaw parrot. It's not used to crush, nuts and those kinds of things. The beak is designed to rip flesh. And so even though it is quite strong, but it's nothing like what a parrot could do. But it's extremely sharp, and to be absolutely honest with you, the beak is designed to, like I said, rip large chunks of flesh to swallow. And people ask me all the time, how can you be this close? How can you take an eagle and just come up and cuddle and nudge and be this kind of friends with him? Yes, you're such a buddy. And he says, aren't you afraid of that beak? And I'll be really honest with you, that beak right there is capable of reaching up and ripping my nose off. To be honest with you, there's not a thing in the world that if he wanted to bite my nose off or rip my ear off, there's nothing in the world that I could do to stop him. And since there's nothing that I could do about it, don't worry about it. That's really the bottom line. What actually keeps me safe handling these guys is that I'm very comfortable handling these guys. I don't have fear. And what a lot of mistakes, especially beginners make, is they've got these large and powerful animals, and they're nervous. And if you're nervous, the eagle in any wild animal will pick up on that you're nervous. And if you're nervous, they get nervous. And as they start to get nervous, and you start seeing that they're acting a little nervous, and then you get nervous, and it escalates, and you have a really big problem. And that's when it becomes extremely dangerous. And so if you have a degree of comfort with them, then they don't feel threatened, and they don't feel that there's anything wrong. That's the way Scout is right now. He doesn't feel that there's any problems, there's anything wrong, and so he's quite comfortable just sitting here hanging out with me, and that comfort level has really gotten to the point. He is wild. He doesn't like people, and so when we go out and we do all of these wildlife programs together, and we're in an auditorium with 500,000 plus people, he looks to me for his security and his safety. And so as we're handling these guys, again, if my body language says there's something wrong, he's real hard to handle. But as long as my comfort level is good, then he feels, and you can see how comfortable he is. He's preening. He said, I'm comfortable. I'm just going to straighten my feathers. And so that's really the key when you're handling these guys. Is you never handle them if you're in a bad mood. You never handle them if you've had a bad day. You never handle them if there's something that's bothering you or something, because that will reflect on how they respond to you, and it'll just make it 10 times harder for you. So I hope that answered the question.
Aaron K asks, let's say you're randomly hiking in the forest and you walk by an eagle's nest without knowing do they make any warning sound, or what does it sound like or look like? Basically, he's asking in what kind of situations might you stumble upon an eagle's nest.
Sure. Well, here's the bottom line, and it's the same with any wildlife. If you're out hiking and you come across an eagle's nest or a den of baby coyotes or a baby fawn or just literally anything, leave the area as quickly as possible. Now, if you get too close to a bird of prey nest of any kind, the majority of the time, mom and dad are going to yell at you. And so if you hear, that high whistle sound that the eagles make, or if you hear the cack sound that the goshawk makes, or any kind of a weird sound, especially if you hear a weird sound and a bird, most of the time they'll give you kind of a warning. You'll hear the sound first, and then if you continue to approach, they might mock dive at you, but they're not going to hit you. But if you continue to get close, there are some birds of prey that'll hit you really hard and try to drive you. And for all the guys that do mountaineering and rock climbing and cliff rappels and that kind of stuff, yeah, you do that and you've got a falcon's nest right there. You're putting your life in danger because you get a falcon hitting you at 100, 200 miles an hour and you're hanging off the side of the cliff. It could be deadly.
We've got 2 more rounds of thank you. We've got a donation from someone named Mark Housekeeper.
Hey Mark, how you doing, big guy?
Hey, Mark.
Mark actually, I need to tell you guys, Mark is actually one of my students. He was one of my apprentices. Mark is a dear friend, and he's been a falconer now 25, 30 years, probably somewhere in that neck of the woods. And so he was one of my students many, many, many years ago. And so thanks, Mark, and give me a holler when you get a chance.
And we also got a donation from Forrest Dang, who says, really appreciate your work.
Well, thank you, Forrest.
Thank you, Forrest.
And all of these donations, like I said, they help us a great deal. We do not receive a nickel of state or federal funding to care for these animals. And so all of the wildlife rescue and all the educational programs are supported through your kind donation. So it means a great deal to us. Thank you.
I like this new question.
Go ahead, Susan.
Nicole Dora says, has Scout tried preening you?
Has Scout ever tried preening me? Every single day. Every day, like I said, he is my friend. We do kind of hang out together, and as you see, I preen him quite a bit, and we do get up close and we do cuddle a lot. But he does try to straighten my feathers. He does have a tendency of wanting to tear the buttons off my shirt, and I don't have my glasses case in my pocket, but with my glasses I have a case to put the glasses in. And if my glasses are in my pocket, he will take my glasses, pull them out of my pocket, and throw them out into the audience. He thinks that's hilarious. So he's very silly. He's very mischievous, and he loves to give me a bad time, especially when we're doing shows.
And another thank you, this one to Kath Larb. She sent a donation and says, thank you for caring for these amazing creatures.
Thank you, Kath. I greatly appreciate you guys are amazing, and it's because of your kindness that I'm able to do what I do.
And someone asks, please do more live videos when time allows.
Well, to be honest with you guys, this is our very first one. We've done lots of videos, and you can certainly go to the website. We've got a lot of rescue videos and those kinds of things. This is our very first live feed that we've ever done. I'm really, really good with things that fly, guys. But the truth of the matter is, the only time my computer flies is when I'm frustrated, and it doesn't fly very well. I'm terrible with computers, and I'm so grateful. DG is our computer person that she loves to be called a computer geek, and she's a guardian, just a godsend, guardian angel to us. We love her to death, and she's here.
Yeah, everybody's unsubscribing now.
No, they're not. So she's here, and she's helping us with this live feed. We really want to do more live feeds, and I would like to do a lot more live feeds with the other animals and that kind of stuff. And we're going to try to do more, but you're talking to a moron when it comes to computers, and so you just be a little patient with me.
Okay, this is a question from Maria K.
Hey, Maria.
During the cold weather, does Scout live outside in his chamber? Does he ever come into your home? Well, that's half answered.
Well, actually, yes, he does live outside during the winter. He loves it. Like I said, he's really dressed for the cold. The heat is what we have to worry about more so than the cold. And so he has his house. His house is 10 feet wide, 8 feet tall, and 20 feet long. That's his house. And he does get to fly in the wintertime. That's the time, the hunting season. That's when he actually gets to go exercise and fly. Now, when the temperature gets above 70, and I know for you and I, we're going 70. That's wonderful. But for him, that's starting to get warm. And so 10 below zero, fine. He loves that. Above 70, we have to watch him carefully to make sure that he doesn't overheat. And so his house out here in the back, I have an air conditioning unit in his house. And so we usually turn the air conditioning on about between 10, 11 o'clock in the morning and let it run until, 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night to keep his chamber comfortable in the summertime.
Okay, someone else. Will he ever mate, and does he go through hormonal shifts?
Will he ever mate? You know, he is sexually mature. They're sexually mature at 5 years old. It is not legal by federal law for me to breed golden eagles into captivity. Now, I can breed falcons, and I can breed hawks, and I can breed owls, but I can't breed eagles. That's something the federal government has not allowed us to do. And in a zoological facility, if you do have a breeding pair of golden eagles, the government really gets mad at you for allowing that to happen. And so there's some laws in there that makes that very, very difficult. Now, he does want to breed. He wants a mate, and he does fly through the courtship season. The courtship season is late January into February. It's the courtship season, and so he does fly through the courtship season. That's part of our hunting season. And if he finds a pretty little lady eagle that's cuter than I am, he will fly away and never come back. I don't own him. He has the right to leave whenever he likes. But he and I have been together for, like I said, about 13, 14 years, which is just absolute proof that I'm adorable. And so he every time he flies, he does fly with the wild eagles, and he chooses. It's his right. He chooses to come back to me every time we go out. And if he ever flies away, I'll be very sad. But that's his right to be able to do that.
Okay, a question from Trevor S. Has he ever gotten into a tussle with a wild animal, such as being chased by a kingbird or merlin?
I've had other falcons come in to chase him. Not a little merlin, but other larger falcons like prairies mostly. You'll have ravens will mob eagles because they're smaller and much more agile than an eagle. They'll mob and chase eagles around. I did have one occasion where I was quite terrified because he went after a badger, but the badger went down its hole. And I saw him coming in. I saw the badger running for its hole. The badger went down the hole before he got to it, and I ran there and grabbed him up and ran like mad to get away because I didn't want him to get in a fight with a badger. But as far as the wild eagles, especially this time of year, this is why we can't fly them this time of year. The wild eagles are all on their nests and they've got chicks, and they will defend their territories from any other eagles coming through. So. Right now, most of the areas around here have got nesting pairs of goldens, and so I don't want him to be chased off or threatened by other eagles.
Kath asks, does anybody else handle Scout?
Does anybody else handle Scout? No, he's only bonded to me. Really he is wild, and he's a little bit temperamental about strangers. He got severely offended by a wildlife photographer several years ago, and because of that, he's a little bit touchy about other people being in the field when he's hunting. And again, he's big, he's powerful, he's dangerous, and we have to be extremely cautious not to let anyone get injured from him.
Is he getting sick of me in the room?
No, he's fine.
And we got another of thank yous. This one to our buddy who's got this mysterious name, the Blue Wolf guy, who he knows. He says thank you, and he says,
oh, thank you.
And he says, my Finch enjoys your videos.
I'm glad your Finch enjoys the videos.
Then we got
That's
a whole lot of thank yous, and the live is out of questions. So we'll go to a couple of simple ones from Megan.
Okay.
What is his sense of smell?
What is his sense of smell? To be honest with you, virtually none. You know, I know all of us have been told, you know, don't touch baby birds with your hand because the smell of your hand will frighten the adult birds away. That's actually not true. That's an old wives' tale. Now, there are exceptions. You know, turkey vultures are a great exception. Turkey vultures have a wonderful sense of smell, and that's how they find their food. But eagles, you know, everything's eyesight, and so he has virtually no sense of smell whatsoever. In fact, that's one of the problems that we have with the eagles is I will, on at least once or twice a year, I will get a golden eagle coming into the rescue center that has obviously been eating skunks. Because the eagle just absolutely reeks of skunk. And of course, if they're really, really sick, then they have to be downstairs. And you know, currently all of the most critically ill are downstairs. I've got a room in the basement that's our triage room, and so there are times that my house has a bit of a skunk smell because I've got an eagle that's been sprayed.
What is the courting process for golden eagles?
The courting process is actually really quite elaborate. You know, they basically show up at the nesting cliff where they nest, and the male will bring the female gifts. She'll bring the female, dead animals. She'll bring the nesting material, sticks, and those kinds of things. The most spectacular part of the courtship is if you ever get a chance to watch this, the two eagles will be up at great altitude soaring, and they'll actually be circling each other, and they do this amazing aerial dance where they start to circle each other. They'll come closer and closer, and they'll fly up to each other, grab each other's feet, and they go into what would be called a death spiral, and it just spin and spin and spin at rapid speed, falling to the ground, and hopefully they let each other go so they break loose and fly away. But I've actually seen eagles actually hit the ground in that courtship dance. So they have this really beautiful, very elaborate courtship. And the female, let me tell you about female birds of prey. They're horrible to their mates. The female birds of prey, an eagle can fly in and present her with a gift, and the female will ignore him. And the male will fly in and bring in nesting material, and the female will ignore him. And the male will fly over and kind of arrange things in the nest, and the female will fly over to the nest, look at what the male has done. She'll scream at him, smack him with her wing off the nest, and then she'll rearrange the materials, and then the female will fly back off a little bit away from the nest, and the male will have to do it again. And so the females can be kind of bullies to the male, and again, they're a third larger. And but with a lot of persistence, courtship will turn into breeding, and they will raise young. And once the courtship part is done and they're copulating, then the females, it's like dating. You know how mean females can be when you date them.
We're gonna get a strike for that. We're gonna YouTube strike for that.
Oh, there you go.
Jamie East asked, "Will eagles really not mate again if their mate dies?"
Well, that's not true. An eagle can. Not to say they will, but they certainly can mate again after the mate dies. And so if you've got a female and the male, you come late winter and the male doesn't return because he was killed hit by a car or something, that year the female probably won't mate. But the female will continue to return to the area until she finds a suitable mate. And it may take her 3, 4, 5 years to find a suitable mate. But yes, they can mate again.
Okay, Jody H asks, "What type of birds are osprey compared to eagles and hawks?"
Well, ospreys are kind of in their own category. Ospreys are a little bit closer to a bald eagle because they're exclusively a fish eater. And so even though ospreys are black and white like a bald eagle, and a white head and a white tail like a bald eagle, and they build large stick nests on the top of trees, along lakes, rivers, and reservoirs like a bald eagle, they are quite a bit smaller. They have a much narrower wing, and like I said, they're exclusively a fish eater, where bald eagles are scavengers as well as fish eaters. So they are quite a bit different. But we do have a lot of ospreys nesting here in Utah, and I have people come up to me all the time and says, "Well, do you know about that bald eagle's nest up at Duck Creek?" And it says, "No, that's ospreys." Well, what about the bald eagle's nest at Enterprise Reservoir? Well, that's ospreys too. How about the bald eagle's nest at Yankee Meadows? Well, that's ospreys too. And so we have a lot of ospreys. People mistake them for bald eagles. But let me tell you guys a little secret on how to tell the difference. You see a large black and white bird, you know, fishing in the big nest and all those kinds of things. What you want to watch for is a black stripe that goes right through the eye. And the black stripe's quite vivid, it's quite easy to see, but you see that black stripe, it's an osprey. If the head is solid white, then it's a bald eagle.
Pamela L. asks, do fledged eagles ever come back to the nest, and are they tolerated by their parents?
Do fledged eagles ever come back to the nest? They do, and they're driven off. Basically, if they survive the first year, and 80% of them don't, but if they do survive the first year, they are genetically programmed to return to where they learned to fly. And so that's part of their survival system, is to be able to do that. And so they'll return back to the same territory from which they learned to fly from. And if the parents are there, they'll drive the chicks off. And the chicks then have to just make their own way in the world. And they're not sexually mature until they're about 5 years old. So by the time they're 5, they will have hopefully found a vacant territory that is suitable for them, and then they hopefully find a mate.
From Nicole D, how often do you get to spend quality time with Scout? I'm just curious. I love what you do for all the animals. Have a blessed day.
Well, yes, I spend quality time with Scout every day, 7 days a week. He requires that. Like I said, they're extremely intelligent creatures. They do need a lot of, since I'm about as close to, you know, an eagle as he has, you know, they need that social interaction. I'm boring you. Am I that boring? But he does need that social interaction. He does need that touch and friendship that he can't get because he doesn't have a mate, doesn't have a wild eagle to get that from.
Okay, last question is from, since we're boring Scout, Pam B, does the male golden eagle help incubate the eggs like bald eagles do?
Yes. The female does the vast majority of it, but there are times when the female just has to get off the nest and the male will step in and help. But primarily what his job is more than helping to incubate the eggs, is while the female's on the nest, the male does the vast majority of hunting to bring food back to not only the female as she's incubating, but also once the young chicks hatch, to bring food back to so the female can spend as much time brooding the young chicks as necessary. Well, we finished all of our questions. Hey guys, thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this. Please go to the website, gowildlife.org, and if you get a chance, please buy our book, Healer of Angels, and the profits from the sale of the book go to help us feed the animals. So thanks, guys.
Thank you.